All right, we begin. Parshas Miketz. Everyone have your notes? Ed, you have your notes?
Yes, I do.
Great. Linda, did it make it all the way to Bel Air? To Ireland? Yeah? All right. Amazing. All right, Parshas Miketz is the 10th portion of the 12 in Genesis. It's 146 verses, 2,022 words, and 7,914 letters. And we mention this every week to remind us that there are no extra letters in the Torah, no extra words in the Torah, no extra verses in the Torah. Every verse that's there needs to be there. Every word that's there needs to be there, and every letter in the Torah is accounted for. And there are zero performative mitzvahs, and there are zero prohibitive mitzvahs in this week's Torah portion. So it begins. It continues actually. Yosef's time to shine continues. And after 12 years in prison, in a single moment, he goes from the lowest place on earth to the highest place, to kingship. It's the most remarkable thing. So Paro has two dreams, right? He has fat cows and skinny cows, and the fat stalks and the skinny stalks. What do they mean? Right? The fat cows were eaten by the skinny cows. The skinny stalks, the fat stalks were eaten by the skinny stalks. Yosef says very interestingly, with tremendous humility, he says, I cannot, and you can imagine, if you're called up from prison, I heard you know how to decipher dreams. Mr. President, let me tell you, right? No, he doesn't do that. Risking going right back into jail. He says, listen, I can't decipher anything. God can. And if God gives me the insight, I'll be able to decipher. If not, I'm worthless, which is the truth. The truth is that we're just a vessel. We're just a vessel. You're a great doctor, I'm sure. You know why? Because God made you a great vessel to care for people and to take care of people. Yeah, we need to study. Yeah, we need to learn, but that's only a tool through which God uses us as his tool to care for others. Same thing as parents, right? Parents are hopefully a great vessel for which their children can gain, because God sends the messages, sends the abilities through us. So Joseph interprets the dreams. The butler remembers Joseph 2 years late. And right. And he attributed the interpretation to Hashem, and he stays humble. And then we have the story of the 7-year famine that's repeated 6 times, our sages tell us. 42, it was supposed to be 42 years, and it was at the end, it was reduced only to 2 years. The famine. Well, the story was mentioned how many times? The story is mentioned 7 times, right? The story of the 7-year famine was repeated 6 times, which would be 42 years. But at the end, it was only 2 years, the famine. It was so intense, the famine, that the supplies they had would only last for 2 years.
I don't think I understand. How can it be repeated 6 times?
If you look in the verses in the Torah, the story is repeated once.
Repeated to whom?
Pharaoh has the dream. He asks, right? He has the dream. Then he says it to his people. Then he says it to Joseph, and then Joseph repeats the dream. It's repeated 6 times.
But the famine didn't get repeated 6 times.
Right, but our sages tell us that really the famine was going to be 42 years. That's why it repeated, because every time 7 years times 6 is 42. But it was reduced only down to 2 years. To 2. It was supposed to be 7 years. Okay? All right. Now, Yosef is now 30 years old, and he becomes the viceroy of Egypt. It's remarkable, right? He's number 2. His name was Tzafnas Paneach, and that's because he was able to. Tzafon is a vision. Paneach means one who is able to decipher visions. So that's how he got the name Tzafnas Paneach. And he was married to Asnas Bas Potiphera. he marries the daughter of the
Yeah.
woman who tries to seduce him.
It's
Right.
not the real one.
Right.
She's, I know who she is.
Right.
She's Dina.
So now, she is.
Wait.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get. I'm not.
Wait.
The daughter was adopted by
That was Dina?
no, the daughter was adopted by Potiphar's wife, and it turns out to be the daughter of Dina.
The daughter of Dina.
Where did you learn that?
Yeah, where's that at?
Where's that?
I read it.
Was that
Probably
in
the
Midrash?
Midrash.
The chief of On. Here we go. Rashi verse 50.
Because I read it 7 or 8 times, and I read it every day, and I remember.
So they adopted the daughter of Dina to marry Joseph?
They didn't know at the time that he was going to marry Joseph.
Okay.
But the daughter of Dina was adopted by Potiphar's wife. Potiphar's wife.
So over here he says, verse 50 seems to stress that Asnas bore children to him, meaning that the sons were dedicated to the ideals of Joseph, not to those of the idolaters among them that she had been raised. No, this is right there on that verse. As the daughter of aristocracy married to a foreign slave and former convict who owed his position to Pharaoh's whim, she might have dominated the home's atmosphere, in which case the children would have been hers. The Torah tells us, therefore, that she adopted Joseph's spiritual and moral outlook to be the only Jew in Egypt and to be married to the daughter of an idolatrous priest, yet to raise children to remain the model after whom Jewish parents bless their children. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh.
One other question. I don't know if you-
Yes.
Is it possible that Dina's daughter who married him was the product of Shechem's violation? Well, she got pregnant. at the
Right.
time.
Right. I don't know. It's a good question. It's an excellent question. I have to look
I mean,
into it.
that's how she would have been raised as an idolatress somehow. Well, they don't say much about Dina after that rape.
Right.
After the slaughter of Shechem. They don't even mention her until this happens, till Joseph marries her.
It's a great question. I don't know. Okay, so now he's 30 years old. He marries Sophanas Paneach, and he marries. His name is Sophanas Paneach, and he marries Osnas Bas Potiphar, and they have 2 children, Ephraim and Menashe, or actually Menashe and Ephraim. Menashe was older. All right, he prepares for the coming reality. I always say that this is the first savings account, right? Egypt Mutual. Right, Mutual Bank, and Egypt Mutual Bank, and basically he teaches us that we have to save for a rainy day, right? See, he saves food and grain in storehouses, and then the famine ensues, and then Jacob sends his 10 sons. Yosef plots for his brother's arrival. He prepares for it. He knows that they're coming, because again, he sees a master plan. Like you said, he sees the forest, not only the woods. Okay? So he has sign-in sheets at each gate. Right? Sign-in. Anybody who wants to come into this country has to sign in.
Show your vaccination.
Exactly. Right? What are they called? Vaxport. Right? Vaxport. They didn't recognize him, and he accused them of being spies. Yosef is very harsh. And he investigates Binyamin's whereabouts, and he was really testing the brothers to see if they treated him as poorly as they treated Joseph himself, right? And then he holds Shimon as prisoner till Binyamin is brought. Shimon, again, was a mighty brother. He was very strong. He's the one of the brothers that took down Shechem. And he was no weakling, right? He was a strong fellow. Either way, he puts him in prison till Binyamin. Holds him as a hostage. Yaakov is extremely reluctant, but Yehuda stands up and takes responsibility for Binyamin. He says, bring your other brother back. It's a very important thing. We all have responsibilities for our brethren. If you look at the term that's used over here, number 40, chapter 43, verse 13, it's a little striking here when he says, so if you look, actually it's not there. They ask over here, I'm trying to find the exact verse, but they said, Eich uchal, how are we able to go back to the man and our brother is not with us? And our sages tell us, think of the words, how can we go back to our master and our brother is not with us? Right? Think of the responsibility that we all have for our brethren, the Jewish people. Right? How can we go back to our master and our brothers, the Jewish people, are not with us? Right? Those who are alienated from Judaism, don't know Torah, don't know wisdom, that's our responsibility to bring them back. If you have someone that you can inspire to go to a Torah class to learn about a little bit about Judaism, you can inspire them by the Torah that you know. We have that responsibility. How can we go back to our master and our brothers are not with us? Right? That's an important point to take out of this verse. So Binyamin and the other 10 brothers bow to Yosef, fulfilling the prophecy. There's a special feast for the brothers, and Binyamin details his family and children named for Yosef. So Binyamin is sitting right next to Joseph, and Joseph's like, let me hear about your family, right? Let me hear. And each brother has a different name symbolizing Joseph.
Really?
Yes, because that's how much he felt a need to have Joseph in his life, and that was something which moved Joseph tremendously. Joseph magically arranges seating by looking at his goblet, right? See, he says, this is a magical goblet. I'm going to have Reuven, you sit at that table. Shimon, you'll sit at that table as well. And he divides up the brothers by mothers, by family. He knew who they were. They didn't know who he was. It's like one of those fake magic shows, you know. It's like I know the answer, right? I know the answer, but you don't know that I took a picture before and then asked them, "Oh, your name is Wendy? Yeah, let me tell you, right? Oh, how did you know my name was Wendy? Right? Because before they had the camera there and they tell them, you know, who's that person? Wendy, right?
When did they stop having multiple wives?
Oh, so that stopped about 2,000 years ago.
I just read that. Stop doing what?
Stopped having
You
multiple
weren't allowed.
wives.
You weren't allowed to have more than one wife.
Right.
About 2000.
Yeah. Well, the times of the Talmud, that's where the decree happened, where they said no mas.
We have up to one.
Some would say.
They wanted to propagate. They wanted to build up the population.
My wife says if you want, she says I don't mind having someone who'll cook and clean.
Yeah.
That's true.
So-
Yeah.
How do they rationalize that though? While having multiple wives? It was before the Torah was here. It was before the Torah was here.
No, but even they observed the Torah. Abraham observed the Torah, even though
I know, but
the
before
Torah wasn't given yet. But even after the Torah was given, the people had multiple wives.
So how do they do that?
I don't think I read that. But after the Torah was given,
It's a good question. It's a good question.
no longer.
It's a good question. How did they have multiple wives? It's a very good question. We mentioned it earlier in previous weeks. We discussed it. How
It was common everywhere. It wasn't just with the Jews.
oh, for sure. I mean, some places it's still common today.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So
look at Solomon.
Right? Solomon had 1,000 wives.
It's all over in antiquity. It's all over in antiquity.
1,000 wives, yeah.
Well, instead of, he married him before.
Right. And he says it's not worth it.
What did he say?
He said it's not worth it.
He said 1,000 horses was over.
You imagine the family reunion with all of them?
Yeah. So Yosef magically arranges a seating by mother by looking at his goblet, and now Binyamin is accused of stealing the planted goblet. He keeps Binyamin as a slave and releases the other 10 brothers, and this is the final test for the brothers to see if they really care for their brother Binyamin. He wanted to see, had they repented, had they really, really, really made a change in their life. And if they really did, he was about to show them. And next week's portion is by far the most beautiful portion. I cry every time I read it. It is the most amazing thing. How Yosef reveals himself to his brothers. It is the most remarkable teaching of the Torah. I mean, every verse is remarkable, but that it just pulls the heartstrings. So it's so incredible, that revelation. So God willing, next week we're going to talk more about that. God willing. I'm sorry. No. Okay. So my dear friends, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward next week to resume our Torah classes. Lenny, this was a great treat. A great treat to see you here. My dear friends, have a good evening. Laila Tov. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
According to this, 393 AD, we have no human. So it's much further than I thought. Do Chabad people get together, and you know all the Chabads all over the country, or?
I don't know. I'm not Chabad, but I'm just Jewish.
Just the mayor and tell. What's the concept of Chabad?
So Chabad is a Hasidic dynasty. It's they have their own customs and their own. They follow their leader, their master, the Rabbi, very, very meticulously, and it's a beautiful group of people that have a very beautiful life, but it's their own, their own little microculture. And you have that with many Hasidic dynasties. Chabad is not one of the bigger ones, by the way. Chabad, probably Satmar is the largest. Satmar, you're talking about several 100,000 followers.
How come they don't know about them?
Because they're not all over the place. They have big hubs, like they have two entire cities in New York that are theirs. It's like they have, or at least boroughs, where they have Monroe, which is upstate New York, which is like the entire city is theirs. And then you have in Williamsburg, you have another, like the whole Williamsburg is Satmar. And then you also have in Jerusalem, you have Satmar. You're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. You also have Gur. What? Satmar. You also have Ger Hasidim, Gur. These are all named after cities in Poland or in Hungary or wherever they were from. Actually, Satmar comes from a town called St. Mary's. That was the name, Satmar, right?
No, are they into outreach the way that Chabad?
So Chabad is the only one who's really, really dedicated their entire mission to outreach.
Okay.
That's why you have a Chabad house everywhere. But
They have leaders like Schneerson,
no, yes, they do. They do. All of the leaders, just about all of them, are very dynamic. Schneerson was one of a kind, really. But the biggest problem is that there's no subsequent leaders since. After he passed, he didn't have any children.
I don't think he didn't pass yet.
Yeah, all right.
That's-
Okay, for those of us that know he didn't have children.
He didn't have children, and that creates a little bit of a problem because there are some who believe that, I've asked people, has the Rebbe died? And like, well, what is really death? Like, they start getting into all that. It's like, it's like, who really is alive and who really is dead? And it's like, gets into a whole thing. So that's a big problem. I mean, I think it's a very, very important thing for any dynasty and for any rabbi who's of big stature, who has a big following, to appoint their successor. And if there's to be no successor, then it should be clear that there's no successor. But it's like when you have all of this confusion, and I had people tell me, no, he's alive and kicking, and he's the Messiah, and he's like, and then there are those who say, well, that's a fringe group. And then I had a guy tell me that anybody who doesn't believe that is not a Chabad. So it's like, to me, I don't know. It's very confusing. I don't know. I have many great friends, very fabulous friends that are Chabad, and love them dearly. And
Yeshiva. Yeshiva produces Chabad?
No. Chabad is, again, it's generally speaking, Chabad will produce Chabad children, right? Satmar will produce Satmar children, and same. And by the way, just so that you know, there are about 1,000 Hasidic dynasties, about 1,000, if not more, Hasidic dynasties. Each one has their master, grandmaster, and he is the one. Now, we have to understand that we all have the same Torah, we all have the same laws, and we can't be exclusive. We have to be inclusive, and it shouldn't be like, it's like we only accept our own and we only tolerate our own, which sometimes some dynasties fall into that trap. They only accept their own, and if you're not part of us, you're part of them. And that's not acceptable in Judaism.
There's 1,000 Hasidic dynasties, but there's only one Torah.
There's only one torch. That's correct.
So
They
all
also,
those
they also have
dynasties
their own Torahs, though.
are all those dynasties?
All the same Torah, same
No,
exact Torah.
It's different. Maybe the commentary is different.
Oh, the commentary, yes.
Yeah,
You can have.
it's
Yeah,
different.
but look, we have all of these commentaries on the Torah. They're all different. They're all unique. They're all, but it's the same words of the Torah.
Yeah.
The words of the Torah don't change.
And they're all Orthodox. I know
They're
you
all
don't-
Torah observant.
I know
Yes,
you don't use that term. but
Yes.
they're all-
they're all Torah observant. Correct. Again, it's all flavors. Like, like vanilla, you like chocolate, but it's still ice cream.
I like you.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
like your vanilla chocolate.
I like it with nuts, little nuts.
Whipped cream.
So, is the first line in Genesis, does it really say what Abraham told you?
Yes, definitely.
I never saw that explained. You never went-
I sure did. When we did the Breaking Through the Bible, we spent 6 months on the first verse. That's why it took us 3.5 years.
On the first line. He
First-
claims in the first line.
All the Torah is in there.
There's evidence of the Babylonians, there's evidence of the Persians, there's evidence
Yeah.
of.
Of the 4 different, yes, absolutely.
I never even read that. before.
Yeah.
Heard that.
It's amazing. Everything's in the Torah. Everything's in the first.
Translation in English doesn't say it.
Because it's very shallow in the English. It just translates literature. It doesn't get into the depths of it. My dear friends, have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing everyone here again, back in person.
Yes, absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing everyone. Have a great,
Thank you, Rabbi.
fantastic evening, everyone.
You
Thank
too.
you very much.
My pleasure. Great to see you, Linda.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you
Bye-bye.
can't really want to hear.